I'm off site. So, hey, everybody, it's high noon on May 19th. Welcome to Lunch Conversations with Randy Wooden, my buddy on my left, and myself, Teddy Burriss. Our special guest is Kari Niblack, Niblack, excuse me.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll let Kari tell you guys about her a little bit. I work for a company called Burriss Consulting. We're social media strategists focused on LinkedIn as a business tool. I absolutely love helping people master using LinkedIn as a business tool in my one-on-one coaching, my corporate training, my mastermind groups, my webinar groups, and I'll actually meet people on a park bench and have a conversation with them. So, Randy, would you introduce yourself to our friends?
Teddy gets around. Let me just tell you, he is the man about town, not just here, but in Maryland too. Randy Wooden. I work with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. There are a lot of different Goodwills around the country. Ours is one of, I'm guessing, about 160 different Goodwill regions or territories. But yeah, we serve a 31 county area. That's our footprint. So it's big. Everything from Winston-Salem, north and west, hence the name. But I run our professional center. So the folks on this call and the folks who watch us on YouTube and typically on LinkedIn and whatnot, those are my folks that I help with job searching, whether you're employed and looking, unemployed, looking, whatever. Our services are free, but we work with professionals, try to help them get to where they want to go. Yeah. We have a lot of fun along the way too. What you got, Teddy?
Did you share from NC Wise Man?
That was my intent. Yes, I did.
Okay, I couldn't. Good. I'm not challenging. I just didn't see it, so I need to ask.
So,
Amber says she loves what you do, dude.
Hey, good deal. No, really, I did. I shared it with friends. It didn't allow me to share with the public for some reason, but
okay.
I believe that I shared with friends. So I think we're good there. I'll have my technical staff research that after the show to make sure that it's being done. It's being done well. But enough about us. Nobody's watching this show for us.
Nobody's here for us.
No way. Kari Niblack is our guest. Kari, you're a CEO with ACS Benefits Services here in Winston-Salem. Lots to talk about today. The glass ceiling. What is it? How do you address it? How do you break through it? Tips and motivation for stepping away from a comfort zone. And we'll probably get into other topics too, like motorcycles. I didn't even know you were. Yeah. So Kari, tell us folks a little bit more about who you are, what you do there with ACS.
Yeah, thanks, Randy and Tate. It's great to be with you guys today. So I am the CEO of ACS Benefits Services. We're a company based here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We've been in business 39 years. And in my role, manage all the company activities day to day. Great company. Have a lot of folks that have been with us for over 20 years, and we take care of hundreds of clients all around the country, take care of their benefit administration. So it's a job I absolutely love. Have been in that position about 4 years.
Good deal. Teddy is going to monitor the chat box. And as always, we want to know, where are you watching us from? And there are big prizes. Teddy's going to reach into the prize box behind him on the floor. It's actually a cooler, but he's going to reach down there and is it really, or is it a box of donuts? I don't know what it is, but we want to know where you're watching us from. And we've got them Charlotte, we've got them Mount Airy, we've had Italy, we've had Mexico, we've had all points in the U.S. I think we had Canada one time too. So all said, if you would just jump in there and let us know where you're watching us from. And also, Teddy's going to monitor that box so that if you have comments or questions for Kari, then he's going to keep an eye on that. So Kari, to get things started, I'm always curious about the why. Why did you pursue what you did and to the level that you have pursued it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So in healthcare administration, what we find is that is normally a client's number one cost outside of payroll. And so you're assisting individuals who are having health concerns, or there's been an injury, or they're in disability. I love putting those pieces of the puzzle together for our clients. It's really about understanding first their industry and their business needs, short-term, long-term, and then putting those pieces together to build a benefit plan for them and then administering that. So it's very client and participant centric. It's very, very hands-on. And we like to say at ACS that we are stewards of their money. It's a role we take very seriously. So every single day for us is different. I have a passion for it. I fell into this industry back before I was 20. I was working my way through school at night, and started processing claims way back in the early 80s. I'm going to date myself. I'm going to do what they told me not to do. My female folks told me, don't talk about your age. But there is a passion and a love of what we do every day for our clients, because if we do our job right, we help them control that cost and stratify risk. There's great reward in that.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I can also imagine that industry is full of regulatory guidelines. And, anytime somebody says the word benefits or insurance or healthcare or any of that stuff, my eyes,
Glaze.
big glaze. And it's like, go handle it. All right. So our topic today is the glass ceiling. I'm trying to think when I first heard of that. I'm going to say maybe in the 70s-ish, because I'm old. So I remember the 70s. I remember the 60s. But that was back in the 70s. And I remember the old Virginia Slims cigarette ads, "You come a long way, baby," and some of this stuff that today.
So our topic is the glass.
Is that okay, Teddy? We doing all right on that end? I think
It's me. I had to get through two screens. Randy, please forgive me. I had to get the screen set up.
Okay. I just heard it. I heard a version of I thought my own voices were talking to me. So
It scared you, didn't it?
It did. I had to kind of go like that for a second. All right. So back on this thing is look, people have come a long way. There's a long way to go. You're a living, breathing example of someone who has broken the glass ceiling. So let's talk first off. How would you define glass ceiling? Let's just start with that so we understand where you're coming from.
Sure. I think glass ceiling is going to be different for different people, but I think it's the ultimate top of your industry, or the top of the industry that drives your passion, and being able to make a demonstrable impact for yourself, for your employees, for your clients, and whatever that is. It could be a trade, it could be any type of business, but for me, it's the pinnacle of now I impact people. And all that comes with that.
Is the glass ceiling defined by reaching the highest position title in a company, or is it somehow otherwise defined? What if you weren't in that role? Could you still justify and say, hey, you know what, I broke the glass ceiling because I achieved X? Is there a way to define that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be individual to the person. I think certainly for me, being the CEO of a company, that's the glass ceiling, and working 35 years to get there. I think for other people that might be different. I think other people might be able to say, hey, I've shattered this glass ceiling, whether it's the first female coach in the NFL, or it's the women in sports, whatever that might be for individuals. Mm-hmm. I think it's really the for them, what defines them is for the pinnacle of their ultimate achievement.
So you're an overnight success, right?
No, I'm a blue collar spitballer, put it together, earned your chops over 35 years. I think that's what we should talk about today in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because you see groups, bands, performers, actors. You see people who achieve the pinnacle, in their career within their industry, and you look and you go, they're an overnight success, but yet the last 25, 30 years they've been singing in bar rooms and taverns and everything else, and in tiny venues, and then suddenly, boom. And in your case, it was not a sudden boom now to your role, but you ascended there. So let's talk about maybe some of the steps that you purposefully or maybe accidentally undertook. Were there things that were pretty well thought out? Did you have kind of a game plan? Walk us through how you got to be where you are.
Yeah, so some strategy, some luck, some having mentors in the right place, right time. And I think the first thing to say is that you should, whatever your passion is, you should use that and grow strategically and broadly. So for me, and certainly others, a career is not always straightforward. Certainly not now. And I think there are no wrong turns when it comes to finding your passion. So for me, guys, that was very much a zigzaggy career. So started at the bottom. I started paying claims, like I said, in the 1980s. I didn't even know what insurance was. I knew that that was a full-time job that would help me pay my rent at the apartment and would help me, drive my Pontiac, right? I had a Pontiac. And that it would, yep, cool car. And
Trans Am, did it have a T-top?
I did not have the Trans Am. I had the Grand Prix, but it was the super duper engine and it was a pretty cool car. Actually, I had two of them.
There you go.
You'll see
Randy,
us.
you found a great special guest, man.
Absolutely.
That's right. So zigzaggy. So I knew very much I wanted to be an attorney. That was a long time coming. So I worked my way through school in my 20s. I progressively advanced in our industry, management training, coming out in operations. And I think that was critical. Around age 30, I stopped. I went to law school. I came back out. I was in-house counsel and practice. And then I got sucked right back into our industry as far as then leading sales and client relations teams and operations and moving up again at higher levels through the industry. So I think, from an advice standpoint for our listeners, listen, broad knowledge is critical, right? Serving in multiple roles always will get you a step ahead. And I think also not resting on your laurels with that.
Yeah.
So, I came out and I was in-house counsel, and even as a practicing employee benefits attorney, I still went back and got an SPHR designation certification. And I had people say to me, "Why are you doing that? You're a licensed attorney in 2 states." Because it's important, right? I'm a classic overachiever that continues every day. But I think that's important for people to understand that, okay, so you've got some credentials or you're working on some credentials. Find areas where you are either weak or you are strong and want to learn more. And no matter where you're at, keep doing that. I think, that's especially important right now where we have so many mergers and acquisitions. There's so much movement going on. It makes you more marketable.
It would. And also to your point about mergers and acquisitions, I mean, job security is lost these days. There is really jobs, and both of you guys would agree with this, I would hope, is your ability to reinvent yourself, to adapt to changes in the marketplace and what's being needed, and to be a lifelong learner, to your point. I jumped off the lifelong learning with WordPerfect, so and Windows 95. So there you go. That tells you, no, just kidding. But point is, you got to stay with it. You got to keep your focus, even though perhaps the industry may change and maybe you take those skills to a different industry, but you're still moving up in that level of responsibility, maybe just with a different industry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Teddy, do you have a chat box?
Don brought up a question. Don wants to know if can the glass ceiling be something that's self-imposed?
I think so. I don't know why not, right? I think that's going to be different for everybody, and why not?
Yeah, the glass ceiling, it can be there. It can be self-imposed, I think, and we'll talk about that later on today as far as breaking out of the comfort zone, or what I'd call a comfortable rut. You kind of get in that comfy area, kind of like a warm blanket on a chilly morning, and you just sort of stay there, and next thing you know, it's noon. Where did my day go?
Let me bring up another one if you don't mind. Let's touch on this for a moment. Kari, do you hear about the new co-CEOs of JP Morgan?
Yes.
2 women. I think they were just appointed as the co-CEOs of JP Morgan. Interesting. I don't want to read too much into what that is or why that is, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I applaud them and the company for being receptive to that, right? Is companies metamorphosis? I mean, that would have been unheard of even probably 10 years ago. So I applaud that. And I think the excitement in that is that's new uncharted ground probably for both of them and the company, is to have the guts to have done it, but then see where it goes.
Yeah.
And why not? And that's not going to work for everybody, Teddy, but I'm actually interested to follow that myself and see where that goes. I think, one of the tenets with that is the best leaders build leaders. right? That's something I'm very passionate about. And so it'll be interesting to see where they take that, and do they complement each other's strengths and weaknesses? Is there there's a reason someone did that, right? And them being receptive to it. So we'll have to follow that and see where that goes.
Yeah, and Randy and I did something similar. We were co-CEOs, co-presidents, we're co-VPs, we're co-everything, including sweepers and dust cleaners, So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's obviously working very, very well for you guys.
yeah.
Hey, we're gonna get to the topic of this imposter syndrome. I know we covered that some weeks back. We actually had a neuroscientist on here, so but far from being a geek, she was really engaging. I think it was Melissa. Sound about right? I think.
Yep,
Anyway,
yep,
I have to go back and double check Melissa Hughes.
Yep.
But we'll get to that too. But you talked about learning the language.
Yes.
Help me understand. And you say gather as you go and learn the language. What do you mean by learn the language?
It is so important, Randy. Every industry has their acronyms, right? They're for us EOBs, accumulators. We talk in code in our industry. And so one of the first things that we tell people new to our company at all levels, and we actually at ACS have a cheat sheet for this that we put together, where here are some acronyms and here's what they mean. And we encourage people, we have a great learning culture, and we encourage people to raise their hand and ask, because we'll be walking in the hall and those things just come out vicariously because that's what we're living and that's what we're breathing. So I think for anyone at any age, learning the terms of the trade, being a student of the business, no matter what level you are at, even at executive level, is critical. You've got to do that to continue to build your profile, be visible, learn. Those are building blocks in so many industries.
Let me ask you, and this is not in the talking point, so if you want to punt this one to another, you want to buy some time to answer it later or whatever. How much of, as you've moved up what I'll call the food chain, you talk about learning the language. So you have to have the product knowledge. There has to be some level of competency from the knowledge standpoint there, but then there's also the culture fit. So if you had to look at this thing and say, how much of your ascension had to do with what I'll call the product knowledge and the lifelong learning versus the leadership traits, big picture, being able to coalesce people together to generate consensus or to get motivated and to do things and move the needle. If you had to balance that, how much of that stuff is the brain part and how much is the gut part?
The gut part, I would say, is probably 75%. Leadership traits, 75%. And I would say the product knowledge, the industry developing is a good solid 25%. Those may shift on any day, but from my seat, I could not do this job without the product knowledge. That's what made me be a candidate, national candidate for the position. So I could be the brightest person in the room, and if I didn't know those acronyms we were talking about, and I wasn't a student of the business, I wouldn't get the job because I couldn't do it. Likewise, you can have all the product knowledge in the world, but if you can't make a gutsy decision and you can't lead teams, you're not going to be a good CEO. You won't be a CEO, right? You won't be a CEO for long. So there's this, that's a fantastic question. Nobody's ever asked me that question. I think, and that percent also, I want to tell the audience, will vary depending on your personality. But you have to have both. I don't think it's an even 50-50 split from my position. Right. They're both critically important. I also think people shatter that glass ceiling or they get to an executive level and there's a natural tendency to stop developing both of those. And I would say that you have to continue developing both those. So right now on my boardroom table at the office, there is a stack, I'm a visual person, so I'm going to show you visually. There's a stack of industry, still old-fashioned magazines, trade, white papers that is this big. Every day I grab some of those, put them in the cart, and I bring them home. Right. And I'm a CEO, but that's critically important because the innovation is happening so fast. And I have to be able to teach people. every day. So that means I have to study and work just as hard, if not harder than all of them in all of the different functional areas that make us tick.
Yeah, I could see that it's going to have a lot on your plate. Teddy, I think there's some chat box questions that are pretty juicy here. You want to tackle one of those, two of them? Pretty good. Good.
So,
We have a
so Kari, here we go.
Kari, we have a really bright audience. I'll tell you, they prop us up every week, and between our special guest and our audience, they keep us afloat. So and on our toes too.
Yeah.
On our
This
toes.
question
Teddy,
comes from Jim, and Jim got compensated for his energy by the thank you, Jim. So here's the question that Jim asked, and you can peel back as far as you want to peel back the layers, Kari.
Sure.
He says, have you ever experienced overt, blunt discrimination in your journey? And what's most important to the question, was it a catalyst to drive you harder, to make you want to succeed more? Or how did it make you feel in that context of your journey?
Oh yeah, Jim. Hey, thank you for that great question. I'm going to give you something that happened to me that, oh yeah, you talk about a catalyst. So I was at a key executive level. This is a VP level. And I was the only woman at a table. And I had a president boss ask me to make some changes in a presentation when he had an assistant sitting right outside his door, when there would have been no way, and I'm very confident in this, that any of the men at that table would have been asked to do that. That's like, and by that, I'm not too important to do that. I actually did it, but you talk about driving. So my thing was, I'm going to be a CEO and lead a company where I never put anyone, male or female, in that spot because it's silly, right? So first of all, I do it myself, or it was the way it happened, and I hope I'm giving that enough context to Jim's question. But it was overt. You talk about fuel on my fire, and that's a little bitty thing, but yeah, right. That it's happened. It's happened, and I came up through late 70s, early 80s, and then bound in this industry. So it was a different time.
No doubt. Teddy, you want to tackle another one, or what you got?
No, I think I've got them all right now, buddy.
Okay. So you talked about raising your profile. That was something you wanted to talk, and I think you've kind of touched on that a bit. And I really appreciate the the whole knowledge thing versus leadership kind of thing. And I don't know whether leaders are born or they're developed, and maybe that's something you want to touch on, but you talk about raising your profile. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think if you want to continue to get ahead in any industry and raise your profile, you have to be visible. And by that, I don't mean silly visible or at an uncomfortable. So I think the first thing is knowing your own personality and your comfort and working within that style, right? So when I say visible, I mean things like volunteer for extra projects, say hi. I have this really cool, and everybody says this, but I truly do. We have an open door policy at ACS where if I am not with a client, I'm not on the phone, and my door is almost always open if I'm not. Any employee can come in and tell me hi, and I love it when they do. And I actually note who does. And what I usually find of those folks are working on their knowledge of our company and our industry, and it's just a great visibility tool. Plus, it's fun socially, right? They're we call it the ACS family. It's important to me, but we move so quickly now. There are things you can do. Another one with raising your visibility is volunteer for a project that's not in your department. So I tell younger people, hey, go have some coffee or spend some time with this leadership team on the other side of the building and learn something. Because you never know when they're going to have an opportunity come up that might be a promotion that you might be interested in. And if they don't know you, because we've got 22,000 square feet, right? You increase your chances besides what could be the harm from that. It's all good. Yeah, so I think those are things that are very easily done that don't cost anything. It's all time and effort and energy.
So that's, Kari, it's pretty cool. I tell people all the time, meet people who do stuff that you don't do. Meet people who do stuff different than you do. In a corporation, just like you said, go down the hall and meet someone in a different department.
Right. Yeah.
You get in these silos, you get locked into a silo, and I'll use Goodwill as an example. And we try to talk about how we like to communicate and cascading information and such. but we're no different from other companies in that that's a challenge that we face. And I'm not saying that we're bad at it. I'm not saying we're great at it, but it's a challenge that all companies face is, hey, this is our workforce development folks. Here's our accounting folks, our HR folks, here are retail folks, and they all have their day-to-day tasks and their own department goals and objectives. And you get so muddied up in your role that you may not know or appreciate what others do. And so, yeah, to the degree that you can step out, as long as you're not taken away from your job. I know our
Right.
CEO, Art Gibble, he's retired. You may know Art. He talked about that. We were talking about how do you break out, get promotion? How do you get noticed? And that's one of the things he talked about is, just like you said, go volunteer, hop on other committees within the company,
Yeah.
but you've got to produce in your role.
Exactly.
So you can't just be everything to everybody and let your job fall by the wayside. That's an important distinction, especially as we look at following our passions. And if we're not in a job that we really love, and I'd rather be do what Teddy does and paint and do what he's doing in his sunroom over there. If I don't do my job with goodwill, I'm not going to have my job at goodwill to be able to go do those other things. So you keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
I guess that if I sound like somebody's father, then that's the thing. But keep your eye on the ball, do your job, but follow your passions elsewhere in the company, and you never know where that might lead. Sounds like, yeah. Teddy.
So Kari, you can't answer this question as easily as Randy and I could. But Marty throws out this question: Have you ever addressed indirect or overt ageism in the workplace, and how does that impact you and on your journey?
Yeah, I've seen it, and I take the exact opposite. I mean, I think that great leaders understand that there is a wealth of knowledge that can be tapped with any particular employee or any particular candidate, right? And sometimes you have to dig a little harder for that, whether it's someone younger or older, it doesn't matter. And I think from a CEO perspective, I encourage our leadership team to do just that. So tap into the potential, tap into leaders build leaders, tap into sharing more, oversharing with teaching. So it does happen. I hate that it happens. It does, but I think great companies and great leaders mitigate or avoid that happening by the culture that and the expectation you set with your team. So, I'm not everybody's cup of cake because I am driven. I am, there's a saying, the riches are in the niches. I am detail oriented off the chart, right? So in our culture, that's just as much on me as it is other people for them to understand, hey, this is what helps me better lead. This is that type of information I need. This is how you can help me get there. I am infamous, my folks who are on the call are going to laugh. I am infamous for asking people impromptu in meetings, even if it's not their area, what would you do with this today? It's not that I don't know the answer, right? It's because it's a great teaching mechanism. Or I'll say, how do you want to proceed? Like they'll turn to me, I'll be in the boardroom, people will turn to me and I'll be like, So I'll look right back at them and say, how do you want to proceed today? So, it's a combination of all those things.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And do you ever find,
go ahead, Randy.
Do you ever find that you get muddied up in the details too much? I mean, as a leader, you're the big picture person, and you get too detailed in the weeds. How do you balance that?
For me, it's confidence. It's confidence, and I'm very intuitive by nature, so it's confidence in taking just enough detail. And let me elaborate, because I think that's a great point for everybody today. You could overanalyze someone and require so much detail that you paralyze yourself. As a CEO, you have to make gutsy decisions. I don't mean reckless decisions, and there's a distinct difference. I mean informed decision. So you have got to be really to go out and say, hey, listen, I've got the courage and the chutzpah, right? We're going to go put the stake in the ground here today, right? And what's the worst that can happen? This is the direction we're going. You want to have people that believe what you believe, and they'll follow that. By that, I mean by the company's mission and values. And you put the stake in. What's the worst that can happen? You have to take the stake up and move it 10 feet, right? So So I think that one of the things I am known for is not letting the detail paralyze me, but instead using it to our competitive advantage. That comes with me from training as well, because as an attorney, when you're representing people, you take very quickly all the pros and all the cons, and you say, here are our options, right? So I lead our company very much like I practiced in, okay, give me for any initiative we're doing. And I teach people to do this because there's an art to it. Give me all the pros and cons, right, that you see, and then we'll make a decision. I've never been accused of not being able to make a decision. That's one thing we've got down cold.
I'm with you. Hey, we're halfway through, Teddy.
Yeah, halfway through. You're on lunch conversations with Randy and Teddy. Our special guest is Kari Niblack. The conversation is, about the journey to becoming a CEO and crashing through, or the glass ceilings. I'm gonna call that glass ceilings. I think there's probably more than one layer there. And a great conversation. Thanks everybody who's on here with us. And Kari, if you're ready, I got another question for you that just came up.
Yes, sir. Ready.
Don shared this. He says, typically, I think we look at the glass ceiling as a female thing. And I think that's probably where it started. But is there a way to look at that, or is there a version that that would be male related, or maybe non-sex related?
Yeah, I think so. I think it goes back to what we were noodling on earlier. I think it can be different for every people. It did start as a female thing. Certainly that's how people normally refer to it. But I think in 2021, that can be anything. It can be different for different people. And I don't think it has to be only female. But certainly that's the context we normally give it. But I would share with him, hey, what is your glass ceiling? It doesn't matter that you're a guy or a gal. Here's that pinnacle of whatever you want to do. Shatter it. Do whatever you need to do to get to that, and sustain it. Yeah,
I'm with you. The glass ceiling, I think, is a lot of cases they're all what's the word, unique. Sometimes it might be personal. Or maybe self-imposed. A lot of different reasons that there's a barrier above us that we struggle to get through. So, hey, Randy, I got a question for Doug, unless you got one you want to take first.
Well, I'm just going to throw out the whole mentor topic. You've been a mentor. Favorites. Yeah, you've been a mentor for other folks. And I would assume that along the way, you had a mentor or mentors who helped guide you. You want to talk about the value of being a mentor, and how do you go find a mentor? How do you do that?
Yeah, this is something I am so passionate about. Mentors are mission critical, both having them and being one. And it's just so important because I've had many in my career, and I hope I'm honored enough for people to say that I've been theirs and inspired them. And they make you better. So first of all, you get different perspectives, and I'll share a very personal story I'm going to tell on myself. I have worked for multiple presidents when I was at their right hand. And one of them that was my all-time favorite, he is still a mentor to me. He's been a reference for me. He really challenged me on this, and he made me a better CEO. And what he said to me was, hey, listen, you move so fast that you're losing some folks, and I would challenge you to, because you're so intuitive, to back that down purposely and give additional pieces of the puzzle in a more methodical way. You'll still get to the same point. And I'm going to be honest, we were having some coffee. When he first said that to me, I blew him up. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I was like, yeah. Whatever, our industry operates off metrics, but I've told that story now probably, guys, 1,000,000 times in deference to him, and respect for him, because he was exactly right. And when I embraced that great mentoring feedback, I became a better leader. There's vulnerability there. And the best CEOs are very comfortable in their own skin and showing that, because you can't do everything. So it was great advice. So he was a great mentor. I, every single day, get opportunities to teach and to share. There are folks I know on this call that I've sat on boards with. that are very important to me that I haven't seen in years, but they're very important, are folks like that where you give back and you share that relationship. It's mission critical.
Teddy, I see there are some more in the chat box. If you'd like
Yep.
to dive into one or two of those, we can try that.
So Kari has given you kudos to the fact that you have inspired her. And she wants to know if supporting other women on breaking through the ceiling, is that something that's important to you or that you're actively involved in? What are your thoughts in that context?
Yeah, very much. So I have the distinct pleasure here in the Triad, North Carolina, of sitting on a women's president's organization. And this is frequently a topic of conversation with these women leaders. So they're my peers. We mentor each other. So we're at what is deemed the pinnacle, and we still meet once a month, and we help each other, right? So there are about 15 of us. And I think that's important too, that we never stop learning. It's kind of what we were saying earlier about continuing to be a student of the business and yourself and just continue to make yourself better, right? So I very much mentor younger women coming into the industry. I think that's so, I hope, helpful to them. And it's not just on the industry, it's the whole person, you know, whether that's school items when they're younger or that's starting out in your career. There's an infamous story about, I had given a keynote speech at a national conference and I was at the airport and someone that was in their 20s I had an peach orange jacket on, and I was in the airport security line and she tapped me on the shoulder. I'd never met her. And she said, "Hey, I think you're the person that just did this keynote speech. Can we have a cup of coffee?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "You've got me." Now, I didn't even know who she was, but I would hope that everybody would do that for other people, whether they're male or female, but especially if they're female, that you give that time if you've got it. And I hope that she tells that story and says that that was beneficial for her.
Yeah.
There was there was a question earlier, and it was a topic that I again mentioned that Melissa Hughes was a guest on about 2 months ago and talked about the imposter syndrome. Is that something that you're familiar with? Or am I throwing something new at you? I'm not sure.
Elaborate just a little for me, Randy.
Yeah, and again, in layman's terms, and Teddy, jump in here, but an imposter syndrome says, okay, I have made it to the C level, or I've made it to the VP level, but you know what? I'm not sure I belong here. And at some point, somebody's going to find out that I am an empty suit. You know, I am just, and it's that sense of I'm an imposter. Yes, I'm here, but do I really belong here? And people are going to find out. So
right.
Am I, Teddy, is that your takeaway on that too?
And I have a story about that I'll tell later on, Randy, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't believe I belong here.
Yeah. And was there a point at which you said, you know, damn it, I belong here. You know, I've earned it and I belong here. But to get to that point, did you have those self-doubt times where you said, man, is this really where, you know?
I think anyone who answers that question, anybody who says that has not happened to them, that's just not possible, right? I think, I mean, that's just, so that happens. And I think there's an important tie-in here that's something I talk about all the time. And that is, there is no nice glossy manual as you move up in positions that says, this is how you do it. You have to just jump the hell in the deep end of the pool and do it, right? And you have enough swagger to trust yourself and others that they'll help you. You're not going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. But I think that, so one, acknowledge that does happen to all of us at certain times, if we're honest. The second thing is not letting it stop you. So not letting it stop any momentum. And you know, I've shared this with our executive team at ACS, and we talk about this with executive level candidates we're interviewing. We're going to throw you into the Niblack deep end of the pool. We're not going to let you drown, right? I just said this. We just hired 2 executives for our company, and we just had those interviews. And I do that little part of the presentation in each of them, almost exactly the same of, listen, there's not some nice leather bound classic novel on the shelf that says how to be a VP, right? Or how to be a chief operating officer. And those are big jumps, guys. When you go from a director to a VP level, to an EVP, to certainly a C level, those are overnight, your life will change big jumps and the responsibility that comes with that. And you just have to jump in. Know that good teams aren't going to let you drown. You're going to get wet. You might be slightly uncomfortable, right? But you gotta go. And sometimes I gotta nudge. So I think that's my best advice on that is don't let that it's that old Bugs Bunny thing where you've got the angel on this shoulder, on that shoulder, right?
Yeah,
and they're in your ear, and you're not ready. Well, that's bull, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to. I call it and we teach this as best we can, or we exhibit it. Hopefully, you have to have a little bit of swagger and just be confident that your team's got you.
And I think back to when Goodwill hired me to start the professional center, there was no professional center. I mean, we drew up a play in the dirt, and they basically said, Randy, go make it happen. Mm-hmm. And one of the takeaways from that is, and what I appreciate about my boss is that they allow me to try things and to fail. And hopefully I don't fail very often, but mm-hmm. The day is young, but the night is young. But the point is to be innovative, to not be afraid to try something that maybe hasn't worked yet. And like you said, what's the worst thing that can happen? You pull up the stake and you move it 10 feet to the side. So let's drill down a little deeper on this breaking out of your comfort zone. And not necessarily to get to break the glass ceiling, but it could be anything. I mean, day to day, gee, I'm leery of, I don't know, you name it. Are there certain mental tricks or tips or things that self-talk that helps you get to wherever that hump is and over that? Is there something that you can share that might motivate or inspire people that can maybe see themselves right now as kind of being in that comfortable rut?
Yeah, I think the first thing is find either a mentor or a peer that you feel safe with and talk about it, because you're not the only one feeling that, right? So I think there's some comfort with that. I think the other thing is and it goes back to where we first started today, and that is expand first of all, know areas where you're weak, right? And then expand and learn, even if it's on your own terminology. Get some basics in those areas, find someone that's really good at that. Maybe you can share more about what you do and they can share more about what they do, and you both learn from each other and you build a friendship. I think that you also just have to innately keep pushing, whether that's baby steps or those are big steps, and that'll change day to day. You cannot rest on your laurels. That's for anybody. I'm not, us, the three of us, right? We all do that. And that has to be just as important to you as going to the supermarket or you picking the kids up. It has to start to be ingrained, because the more you do that, the more confident you will be in doing that.
So you're gaining confidence through habit, and seeing that. And I'll steal a line from Teddy. So and he may be thinking, nobody ever died from networking. That's something. Yeah. So that's a big thing for our audience. A lot of job hunters out there, and they're hesitant to ask for help. Okay. Not necessarily a mentor, but just to ask their network, their people that they know for help. They're afraid to do it for fear of being told no, or being a pest, or whatever. And so they sit back and answer ads all day long.
Right.
And I think we all know the value of that is. So any thoughts for our job hunting audience? You've done a lot. You've done a lot of interviewing throughout your career. Are there tips that you could provide to somebody who is perhaps in a job search, or maybe thinking about a job change, industry change, and tips to help them break out of that comfortable rut and do the networking and move on to that next level, that next step?
I think certainly find what you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about it, it's less of a chore. I think the other thing is seek out folks in that industry who are experts, who will share their time. Raise your hand, go to some networking events in that industry and talk to people. It's so funny because we talked about this the other day at the office. No matter what levels, sometimes people are so hesitant to just raise your hand and say, hey, can you help me? Or, hey, do you have 15 minutes? Or, hey, what would you do with this? To a T, guys, I don't know anyone that would, unless the house is not like that, is going to say no to any of that, right?
Yeah.
I think all of us, I think that's the first thing. Trust that people are kind and good and want to give and are approachable, even if you don't have an already established relationship. So it is going to require a little bit of just trust this, right? And you do have to take a step and another step and another step. But I think the networking piece is also critical. If I look at the last 3 jobs I've had, they are all from a personal relationship.
Bingo.
Right? I wasn't looking, and all 3 of those evolved from friendships or someone saying, "Oh, you should talk to Kari," right? And so I've been very lucky and fortunate in that's how that's occurred. Or, former clients who have called me and said, "Hey, I've got now this C-level role. I really want to talk to you about it." So you never know when that's going to happen, and I think that ties in with everything we've talked about today about. You just have to push through at your own pace that fear and know that we all have that, no matter what level that happens.
Yeah, we do. And Teddy, you had a chat.
Rocky reminds us that often we've been given the seat at the table for a reason.
Yes.
You need to know what that reason is and then produce towards that reason. And Marty I asked this question to the audience, what self-talk have you used to move yourself past your comfort zone? And Marty says, fear, false evidence appearing real. What's worse that could possibly happen? Dale Carnegie wrote a book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And anybody who is dealing with the glass ceiling, you're dealing with the imposter syndrome, or you're dealing with fear, you need to read that book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And Dale reminds us that 99% of the time, the stuff we fear never freaking happens. And yes, he used that word freaking in my mind.
Yeah. And there's another, and I'm not going to remember it exactly, but don't fear for tomorrow. Today has enough of its own issues. It's not to say that we don't plan and we don't move, with some sense of purpose. But tomorrow will take care of itself. Take care of today and what's in front of you knows. Hey, we've got just a few minutes left here. You mentioned something about volunteering to be on boards. That was a talking point, that if somebody wants to get to your level in an organization, how important do you feel it is for them to be engaged in other companies on boards and the visibility that goes with that?
Oh, I cannot overstate the importance of this. So for my entire career, I have given back to the community by serving on different boards. I just accepted an appointment. The formal ceremony is in a couple of weeks, but for the Winston-Salem Symphony Orchestra, right? Now, telling on myself, I have 0 musical talent. I didn't play an instrument. I know good music. I love tunes, right? I know what I like all kinds of different musics. But how enriched I am to have the opportunity to be able to give my professional skills back to them, and them enriching me likewise, right? For their love of music and their talent. And just in the short time I've been working with those great folks at the symphony, I have 100 new friends. I've sat on university boards. Rocky, who's listening today, years and years ago, I sat on a career advisory services board with her. So every time you do that, multiple things happen. 1, you enlarge your network. 2, you improve areas that you may not have a particular skill in. So there's an appreciation there. 3, it generates opportunities that may not have been there had you not. I also think it makes you more well-rounded in leading. So because you're going to have to work with different personalities on the boards, you're going to have different missions. So it takes you somewhat out of your comfort zone, and that makes you a better employee, a better leader, certainly a better C-level. So I think it's very important.
How difficult is it for somebody who isn't at the C level and who isn't at or even a step below, but just say somebody who's hourly or just moving up in their career. How difficult is it to get on a board? What do boards look for? How can I break into that glass ceiling, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, I think the first thing you do is there's an interim step that you can take that costs nothing but time, and that is volunteer for a community cause, right? So even if it's not right up to the board of directors, I had to do this. Volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, go build a house. Volunteer for, I'm a big proponent of I do programs here for local schools with Reading with Kids, right? Big on education. So listen, I don't have to be a board member for that. I just have to fill out the little application for Foresight Community Schools and go do stuff like that. I think that type of experience then makes you more attractive to be selected for a board position. So it's like everything we've talked about today. You got to put some elbow grease in it. So you've got to, and sometimes that might be a smaller step, but if you do enough of those things, you'll meet people that will then be looking for board help. The other thing is just nonprofits in any city in the country right now need help.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, jump in and help.
Yeah, and that's something that I tell our clients, especially those who have been long-term unemployed, is you're going to have to give an answer for what have you been doing during COVID. And, you know, if that's education or if it's volunteering or doing something to show that you're keeping your skills up and still engaged and haven't just kind of given up and curled up in the, you know, on the couch, so to speak. So lots of good information shared today. Kari, is there anything else, Teddy, in the chat box that you want to do before we move on to the final segments here?
Oh, a rocky throughout, you know, we've kept the relationship for years. And I think in the context of the volunteering for the Winston-Salem Symphony. And I'm with you, Kari. I remember years ago, I was started out as a volunteer for March of Dimes. And within a few years, I was on the board for the March of Dimes. And I'm with you. The rewards, the people I met along the way were fabulous. So great reminder that we have to give. And then we can show up at the table and we can participate at higher levels and grow our careers. Back at you, Randy.
Yepper. All right. Well, let's move into the final segment here with Kari Niblack, and it's the takeaway. What are some takeaways that you'd like people to remember? We covered a lot of turf today, and I appreciate you coming on. What are some things that you want people to remember about today?
Well, I think the big thing is just go for it, right? I mean, you may, like, no matter what you want to do and what the glass ceiling means for you, you may have that little thing on your shoulder that says, oh, I'm not ready yet, or, you know, X, Y, and Z. Embrace risk. Be willing to say to yourself and have confidence and listen, I'm qualified. I trust my intuition. I'm going for it. And plant your stake that we talked about. What is the worst that can happen? You have to move a stake or you have to go to a different yard, right? So I think that the biggest thing for everyone in the audience is keep learning and growing every day. Don't rest on your laurels. Go for it. Shattering this glass ceiling, guys, does not happen by accident. It takes work. And it's sustainable work even when you get there. So I would encourage, I'm the little one that's going to nudge you, right? I think so as another theme, nudge yourself and also let others nudge you out of your comfort zone. And if you keep doing all those things, you're visible, you volunteer, all of that is good towards your overall improvement of yourself and your potential positions in whatever industry you're in.
Okay, got to ask you, what motorcycle is it you ride?
Oh, I've had a few. So
See, she's diverse, right? So it's not just number crunching and all this stuff and CEO and all that.
Yeah,
it's
diverse. I started on a dirt bike on a Kawasaki, right, and out in the dirt and on some acreage, and then I like the classic. I'm a classic type gal. So I haven't done the KMM thing. I'm the classic. Looks like the old-fashioned, like 1960s, early 70s bike.
Softail or hardtail?
Oh, that's it. That's it, right? So right now I'm looking at the Triumph, you know which one I'm talking about, Teddy, the Triumph that looks like the one that James Dean used to ride, and you know it's I don't know the number on it, but that's actually, I'm shopping for one. Don't tell anybody.
Nobody's going to hear this at all. There's only 43,000 people listening right now.
Hey, Kari, I appreciate you coming on, and you've shared some great tips, been inspiring and informational all at the same time. And we've had some excellent interaction with our audience today. So I think we're in for a pay raise, Teddy. So, what's the deal, man?
Hey,
So-
Randy, I told you publicly, you cannot ask about money.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't then. All right, so I'll give a quick story, and then Teddy, you'll do it, and then throw it back to me, and we'll mention about our next week guest. And I don't really, I always joke that I don't have a story, and and then I always say I'll make one up as I go. And so this week is no different.
Consistent, buddy.
Here's kind of what happened. I can't tell you how many times I've said I didn't want to wake up at age 60 and wonder what if. And so here again, life's a journey and a lot of chapters, a lot of things. But back, I'm going to say about 20, 25, maybe even 30 years ago, I made an industry change to the kind of work I do now and was doing it for a company in another state. We had moved down here, and then the .com thing blew up in 2000. And so I was kind of stuck in an industry that I didn't know a lot about, selling stuff I didn't really know or much care about, quite honestly. And I loved the kind of work that I used to do back in the other state. So I was fortunate enough to be able to have access to some funds to get started, and had a really good run for a few years. And then it kind of fizzled out with the 08 recession and so forth. But the whole thought of opening my own business to do the kind of work that I do now, to your point, Kari, was not a cakewalk. You got to go out and sell it. You got to market it. You got to sell it. You got to provide the service afterward. And Teddy, you and I have had gazillion talks about this over the years. So, but I've never had and this is key, I've never had a client within Goodwill that I've worked with who's been a business owner and who has regretted, even though it may have crashed and burned. They've never regretted going for it, because it taught them a lot about themselves, things that they're good at that they could build upon in their next chapter. And, we say it's only money, and yeah, you need money. And I get that, but that self-worth, the proving it to yourself that you can step out of a comfort zone and not just suck up a paycheck your whole life,
right?
But you can step out, and you may not succeed, at least as the world sees it, or as others, may see it. But there's so much value that you can gather from that. And looking back, you can't change the past, but that's one of those key things that I think a lot of folks hesitate. They get stuck in that rut, and the fear factor kicks in. So to your point, go for it. Teddy, I'll throw it to you, and then for a story, and we'll bring it back here. We'll talk about next week.
Do you know who's on next week? You got that in front of you on your notes?
I do. In fact, just like you, old school notes, right?
Hey, here's my story. And Kari used the word, Kari, actually, you said rest on your laurels 3 times. And I know what it means, but I want to know, what does a laurel look like? But I'll figure that out later on. Okay.
All right.
So you use the word confidence a couple times. You've got to have confidence. And then in the context of the, imposter syndrome, I remember years ago, I worked for a guy, and this guy taught me the power of the dollar, and a really great guy to work for. And I had $1 million decision to make for the company. It was my choice to make this $1 million decision. And I had, 5 different ways I could go. And I was over analyzing, which meant, Kari, I didn't want to make a decision because I was over analyzing. And, I was, maybe about a week behind schedule on making this decision. And I'll never forget, he walked into my office and he closed the door. And he said, make a decision. He said, if you make a wrong decision, we will fix it together. Make a decision. And that taught me years ago that I need to stop overanalyzing. I need to do my due diligence, but whatever it is in life, make a decision. As you said a couple different times as well, Kari, we can always move the stake. We can always pivot and adjust, but you got to make a decision. If you want to break through your glass ceiling, if you want to, achieve the goals you want to achieve, you got to make a decision and move forward. That's my story.
Great. We've had Kari Niblack, CEO of ACS Benefits Services, talking about breaking the glass ceiling and also stepping out of that comfort zone. Next week, interesting topic. We're going to have Carolyn Rhodes on. She is a consultant that deals in the diversity, equity, inclusion space, but her topic is not necessarily DEI, but is dealing with the biases that exist in recruiting and the hiring process. Perhaps unintentional biases that exist in the wording of the job description or the qualifications or where the job posting is listed, what audience is seeing that, how do our biases play into that overall hiring process? So we're going to cover that in some good detail. We invite you to join in if you have questions and comments. Join in the chat next week. We'll have Carolyn Rhodes as our special guest for the last show of May. Teddy, believe it, we're almost headed to June. And I'm going to be out on the beach.
Who would ever
next week.
believe that we would get this far, buddy?
No. We've taken the internet by storm, my friend. Hey, folks, have a great Kari. Again, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. Teddy, take care. Enjoy that time away with the rhododendrons and the snakes and the bugs and everything else out there. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye now.